In April of 2017 in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, police responded to a call of a weapon being fired, and they saw DeMarco Anderson, a black guy, leaving the scene. So they went to restrain Anderson and, you know, put him in handcuffs and, you know, see what's going on. They have to investigate it, and he was the guy that was leaving the scene, so they suspected that he was the one that was firing the gun.
They videotaping you, sir. I mean, I see why you being aggressive, sir. Look, I am. I am, sir. I am, sir. I am serious. Oh my God. Oh my God. Are you serious? Are you serious? I got cuffs on, sir. Are you serious? You got your knee on my neck? On my head? On my head, sir?
DeMarco Anderson was on the pavement being detained by a few different officers.
He's obviously under control.
Obviously under control.
Not fighting.
Not fighting at all. He is still. His head is up. He's looking back, but he is still. And that is when Officer Zachary Rosen rushes to the scene, kicks him in the face, bounces his head off the pavement. Whew. So, Rosen was fired after this incident. Well, not directly after the incident. It was after the video actually got out that he was fired. Now, Rosen told investigators that he was scared that Anderson still had a gun on him, because of course they were called to the scene because somebody shot a gun, and Anderson was fleeing from the scene, so that's why they detained him. So he was scared, in fear of his life, that Anderson still had a weapon on him. That's why he rushed to the scene, and he said that he stomped once on Anderson's left shoulder. Well, that's completely false, because he stepped on his head and bounced it off the pavement.
Okay, but like, why does it's like he's admitting to something lesser even though it's wrong?
Yes.
Like a shoulder, it may I guess
still have been wrong.
Yeah, it might like it may be less, like I wouldn't say less brutal.
Well, it would have been less. Head is definitely more brutal than a shoulder.
Yeah. But like he's like trying to admit to something like lesser, just to try to like justify what he did.
Right. And then he also told investigators that at the time Anderson was not secured in handcuffs yet. That was a lie as well, because Anderson was secured in handcuffs. He was not moving, and there were multiple officers on the scene.
Okay, like let's just say he really thought Anderson still had a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that's true, he's handcuffed and can't get to it.
Okay, there's another part to that as well. Okay, so if he actually believed that Anderson was in possession of a gun, then after kicking him, why didn't you go and try to confiscate this supposed weapon? All he did was just stand around at that time. He didn't go and try to recover this supposed gun. The deputy chief, Thomas Quinlan, wrote in a report, he said, quote, "If the fear of a weapon and threat of death were real, it makes no sense that Officer Rosen stood around after the apprehension and did not search Mr. Anderson for weapons," just like what we said.
The police chief, after this incident, recommended like he be suspended for a few days.
Yes.
And what else?
So yeah, it was Police Chief Kim Jacobs recommended that he receive only a few days suspension and training. Training on how to search for weapons on suspects.
So like her focal point is that he just doesn't know how to search suspects. This ain't got nothing to do with searching. This has to do with excessive force.
Yo,
like,
he didn't even search him though.
Yeah, he didn't search him. And what kind of like training does someone need to not know that stomping on someone's head when they're already cuffed is not the way to go?
So he was fired, right? But recently, he has been rehired by the same department. So in a 27-page ruling just yesterday on Monday, it was an arbitrator named Mitchell Goldberg, and he declared that Rosen could return to work as a Columbus police officer. He also said that Rosen used more force than necessary. He did admit to that, but there's a big but coming. He said there was no evidence that showed Rosen intended to injure Anderson.
What else?
So when you stomp a head into the ground, it's not automatically assumed that you're trying to hurt somebody. That's what we've learned. I find that the grievant's past good work record and his performance at the highest rewarded level, combined with his intelligence level, is persuasive evidence that he has the ability to adjust his actions to conform with policies and directives in the future as they relate to his use of force and bringing dangerous suspects under control. I gotta call bullshit on that, man. I don't care what good past this particular officer has. If you can't refrain from stomping a man's head into the ground, bouncing it on the concrete, when that particular individual is already restrained by a number of police officers, it wasn't like one, it wasn't dark. The individual was not struggling. He was in cuffs, and there were multiple officers attending to him that had put him in cuffs. You were nowhere near to be found. You rushed up on the scene and went overboard and stomped his head into the ground.
The fact that he did that and the suspect was already detained. Mm-hmm. So if those are his actions, when a suspect is handcuffed, detained, and not a threat,
not a threat at all,
and he can't even
just chilling, and
he can't even make the right decision in that moment. I'm curious as to you know what his actions would be
in a high intense
situation where maybe his life is under threat for real.
That's right.